Oh, that's it, 4 speed. I've run out of gears already. None of this outside lane racing along on this old girl. I've had all the clutch off of this, and I think I've put the footrest there. It's amazing actually, considering how old it is. The footrests are adjustable on this, so you can sort of raise them up and down. It's quite clever really for back in the 60s, probably late 50s. But I think I've put them 1 notch too high because I can barely get my foot under the gear knob now, or gear selector. So we're out on the old Norton 650 SS. I'm guessing that'll have something to do with super sport and not what the Germans got up to in the Second World War. No indicators, arm out, no one knows what that means anymore. Actually, petrol. Yeah, we're okay. Now the petrol in this is probably about a year old and it still works. God, that is really difficult to change gear. Good job I'm not going on a world tour. Just had the clutch apart for the 3rd time as it was slipping again, but I found the problem. The problem was that inside the clutch mechanism on this, it's got what they call a cush drive, and it's like a 3-legged star, and it's got rubber little cushion pads inside, and I never replaced those when I restored this about, God, when did I restore this? 14 years ago. And what's been happening, when I took it apart, I noticed when I was checking the clutch, there was all like black, sort of greasy stuff inside. And when I stripped the cush drive out, the rubber had just gone to like a mushy paste, and it was oozing out of the cush drive or centre hub on the clutch, which I think was causing the clutch to slip, because I run transmission oil, auto transmission oil in the primary chain case that lubricates the primary chain that drives the clutch. And transmission oil should never ever really give you any issues with clutch slip, whereas if you use engine oil, especially with modern oils, it probably will make it slip. Whereas ATF is the perfect thing, because you're only really lubricating the chain, and there's a sort of large roller bearing assembly in the back of the clutch. Well, on this it's like a massive roller, and that only spins when you've got the clutch out and you're changing gears, so it doesn't really need much at all. So it looks like I'm just about to get overtaken by a car, which is very disappointing when you're riding a bike, but we better let her warm up a bit. It's got thick oil in it, and it's not very warm today, so probably need about 5 miles to get it nice and runny, and then we'll whip his arse. Must remember that the choke's off, because this is all manual stuff on this, you know. I think the most high-tech piece of equipment on this is the 3-phase alternator that I fitted off a Norton Commando. So we've actually got decent lights. H4 halogen bulb. None of this old 6-volt rubbish. Right, let's catch him. So I want to take the head and barrel off of this. One of the reasons I'm giving this a run is to get it nice and warm, and we're going to drain the oil. Actually got a Norton Commando filter on this as well, so we're going to oil and filter, but the head and barrel are going to come off because I've got a new set of cam followers to fit in the barrels, and I just want to have a look inside because it's done about 4,000 or 5,000 miles since I put it back together. Just make sure everything's good. I mean, it should be, but I know the cam followers, one of them had a chip on it, and just never got round to replacing those. It hasn't caused any issues, but might as well do it. Oh, and I had to put a new side stand on it because after 60 years, the lug on the old side stand snapped as I put the side stand down a few weeks ago. Luckily, I was just about to lean the bike onto it and it went further and further over, and I thought, And when I had a look, the actual little lug, there's a... Hang on, let me just check the clutch. Oh yeah, that's better. It's not slipping now. There's a sort of lug that bolts. There's two lugs that bolt together and like squash against the frame, and then it's got like a big flat surface that pushes against the engine plate. And the top one had cracked, and it was really, really thin. I was surprised actually. And I've ordered a new one, which is a sort of reproduction one, but it's much thicker. So that's done, and now the bike actually stands. It used to lean over quite a lot on the old lug, but it's a lot better. A lot better. We need a photo opportunity, don't we, really? Running nicely at the moment. Shouldn't say that, should I? I'm out in the middle of nowhere, no tools. It's so small, this bike, for a 650. Well, I mean, it's all British bikes, all bikes from the 50s and 60s are so small compared with modern day bikes, but it just feels tiny to ride. It goes well though for a little 650. I mean, it is, as I say, it is the sports version, so I think it's got a slightly hotter cam. It's got twin carbs on it, so it's come on, what are you doing? It does pull quite well for an old bike. And you know, when you look back in the 60s, I mean, 650 was generally the biggest bike. Like today, it's all thousands and 1200s and bigger. You know, there was bigger bikes, Vincents and Ariel Square 4s, not that they were making them in the 60s, but generally most bikes were either a 650 or 750. There's a few, yeah, the mid 60s, Norton were doing the Atlas, and Triumph started to bore things out to 750, T120, but mainly, certainly mid 50s up to the mid 60s, most bikes were 650 or below, so 650 was a big bike, whereas now it's tiny really, isn't it? But, oh, what are you doing? He wants to smell the R40 coming out the exhaust. He's obviously heard that I'm out today. Well, thank God we've actually cured the clutch problem, because I was starting to scratch my head a bit with that, because, as I say, everything was good in it, but it wasn't holding up properly. So, yes, that's good. Oh, so that's 5 miles an hour out that speed, if that's anything to be believed by the sign. Oh God, I tell you, this definitely needs the footrest adjusting. Struggling here to change gear. I always find with this, you know, it's quite happy. Probably about 60. It will go a lot faster than that, but it is 60 years old now, and we probably have got a little bit of metal fatigue in places, especially on the old conrods, and I don't want to blow it up. I've had on the clock just over 100, which was probably about 95. It should do, I think this should do about 110, and depending, you tweak them a little bit, but yeah, you should really get about 110 out of it, I would have thought. I mean, it does pull. Well, it's about 75. Oh, well, obviously kilometres, that is. You know, I've always been a great believer in the European rules, and I only ever work in kilometres. So ignore anything you see on the speedo, because it's only ever in kilometres. So the one thing you do get with these old bikes, you get a lovely hot smell from the engine, which is a mixture of sort of oil, polish, hot engine. It's lovely. Let's turn the old beast off. Oh, and then also the hydrocarbons from proper exhaust emissions, none of this catalytic crap. Yeah, so it is nice, isn't it? It's a nice old thing. Right, let's see if it starts. Oh. Of course it will. Of course it'll start. Feels like it needs an extra gear. You used to be able to get a 5-speed gear cluster for these. Bloody expensive, but it would be nice. If I was using it a lot, I probably would, but that's probably best part of about £2 now, so we'll give that a miss. God, loads of traffic as usual. Doesn't matter, on the mighty Norton. Good thing about this is you never leave the indicators on by mistake. No quick shift though. Perhaps I better put a bit of light on. Right, we'll have a quick latte at Walker's and then do a little circuit back home, I think. We have to use the back brake on this because it hasn't got a brake light on the front brake, so you've got someone up your jacksie, they don't know you're braking if you're on the front one. Indicator arm out, there we go, lovely, yes. Get out the road, boys.